No, no, no. Now you'll be giving just a shawl only. You for Joyashree, you for Shuvara. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I request all of you to please be seated down. We'll be starting the event very shortly in 1 minute. Yes? हाँ ठीक है ठीक है कॉल ऋषिका आई विल बी स्टार्टिंग नाउ या ठीक है ओके Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm good evening to all of you. I request all of you to please be seated down before we start the event. I request each one of you to please keep your mobile phones, your iPads to switch off mode, please, or on silent before we start the proceedings of the event. Thank you, audience, for joining us. After 2 years, we are now doing the physical event, and we are very much delighted to have you back at the 10th Subir Raha Memorial Lecture. I, Tamanna Girdhar, on behalf of Global Compact Network India, welcome you all to the 10th Subir Raha Memorial Lecture. Before we start the event, I would also like to announce that this event will be streamed online on YouTube, Facebook, and all other social media channels. So thank you, audience, who is joining us online today. Thank you very much. The lecture has been dedicated to our former President of Global Compact Network India and former CMD of ONGC, late Shree Roy. He is the chairman and the managing director of the ONGC group of companies and left only aboard on 1st Feb 2010. He led the ONGC group as CMD from 2001 to 2006. During his tenure, ONGC not only became the highest among all the Indian corporates in terms of market capitalization, but also acquired the mini Ratna status. Mr. Subir Raha initiated the expansion of ONGC into various value integration projects, and he was one to introduce the IT along with the entire supply chain management of ONGC. He was a man who knew how important it is to efficiently allocate the resources and direct them towards deployment. On this note, I would also like to make that Subir Raha vision and foresightedness has been tremendous in making the Global Compact Network India as one of the leading networks in more than 160 countries where we are present in the United Nations Global Compact. So we owe this to late Subir Raha. Today, this lecture is on a very prominent theme that we are going to discuss today: climate conversation and the secret of prosperity in the 21st century. We are joined by the very esteemed guests today who are there for the Subir Raha Memorial Lecture. Dr. Alka Mittal, who is the first woman chairman and the managing director of the ONGC, who is taking the charge. She's one of the leading women who has taken as the first woman charge at the ONGC, and before that, she was the director HR at the ONGC group. She has also led the head CSR at the corporate office and looking at the major CSR projects all across the India. In her capacity as a CSG, she streamlined the activities and brought in the uniformity in working of the Skill Development Center of the ONGC. Thank you so much, ma'am, for leading the ONGC at a very tremendous heights that ONGC has been at today. We are also joined by the chief guest today, Dr. Joyashree Roy, who is the Bangabandhu Chair Professor, Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand, and Professor of Economics at Jadavpur University, Kolkata. Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today. Thank you very much. We also have Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra, Director HR at Indian Oil Corporation, Chairman Lanka IOCL, Chairman Indian Oil Mauritius Limited, who is a firm believer in the possibilities. And Mr. Mohapatra is also the President and Board Member of International Federation Training and Development Organization, Trustee Secretary of Indian Oil Foundation, Member, Advisory Committee, and in Institute of Chemical Technology. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. We also have with us with the board members, Mr. Thakur Fairwani, who is the Vice President of Southern Region for the Global Compact Network India and the Global Head, Safety, Healthy and Environment at Dr. Reddy's Laboratory. With over a decade of experience, he has established strong technical expertise in cross-industrial and multifaceted areas of sustainability, governance, safety, and health management. He has led impactful initiative in leading the companies Cadbury, Unilever, and also Hindustan Coca-Cola. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. We also have with us Mr. Somesh Biswas, who is the Vice President of the Eastern Region of Global Compact Network India and Chief Corporate Sustainability at Tata Steel Limited. He has over 25 years of experience in the metals and mining industry and been with Tata Steel since 1999. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. And it's been an honor to be with you. Thank you so much. Lastly, Mr. Asim Kumar, who is leading the Asia Pacific Resource Center at the Global Compact Network India and also having the additional charge of officiating executive director. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Before we proceed for the event and also with the welcome note, I would now request Dr. Alka Mittal to please present a shawl to our chief guest, Dr. Joyashree Roy, as a gratitude of appreciation. A big round of applause. We are also joined by Ms. Shree Roy, daughter of late Subir Raha. She's currently heading the new initiatives at the Council of Energy, Environment and Water, CEW. I would also request Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra to please present a shawl to Ms. Shree Roy as a token of appreciation. A big round of applause for Ms. Shree Roy. Thank you so much. I now request Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra, Director HR at the IOCL, to please present the opening remarks of the dais. Over to you.
Thank you. Namaskar. Distinguished guests, respected speakers on the dais, Dr. Joyashree Roy, Dr. Alka Mittal, and all the friends here. I see a lot of known faces there, all my friends sitting here, and all those who have connected over the virtual medium. So once again, very good evening to all of you. Of course, I personally am extremely delighted that I will be giving this opening address at the 10th Subir Raha Memorial Lecture, which is, of course, a small tribute from our side to the great achievements of one of the tallest leaders. I think who has, I can very easily say we have, since my joining in Indian Oil, we have been following him. So I have seen him traversing the toughest of the roads and still reaching the topmost echelon. So that's something which makes Mr. Subir Raha different from so many others. So he was, of course, the founder president of even GCNI and former chairman and managing director of ONGC. And before becoming ONGC chairman, he was director HR of Indian Oil and an IOCN from the start itself. So for me, it's a personal pride. Friends, in the words of Pericles, the Greek statesman, what we leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven in the lives of others. I think probably that spells well for Mr. Raha, the legendary leader, who has left indelible marks, not only in the organizations, but also in the lives of people, in the ethics of people, and how people can go forward. So I think his outstanding achievements, particularly, of course, very specifically to the energy sector, or as well as to the entire industry sector, has been extremely, extremely I think every time that we think of him, we would love to follow the footpaths that he had set it for all of us. So one of the loveliest seed is, of course, UNGCNI. In the morning, Madam was talking about the earlier days when UNGCNI was set up. So I think if we see that UNGCNI is today standing tall, standing strong, and is also recognized globally, then of course we can always give it to we can always owe it to Shree Raha's passion and his commitment. We are indeed honored today to have Dr. Joyashree Roy. I was just telling her, the Bangabandhu chair professor and professor of economics in Jadavpur. Incidentally, I think all of you must be knowing Shree Raha is also from Jadavpur University. He was the topper of Jadavpur University in chemical engineering. So, that's how it is. So, we have, she will be talking on climate conversation and the secret of prosperity in the 21st century. The theme, of course, which is very closely in sync with what we have been doing in GCNI, and which is also towards achieving the SDGs. We have also, I told already Shubha that she's part of us. She's sitting here. We also have many of the stalwarts who have worked. I can see one, Mr. Gurmeet Singh, who is the DGPP, who has worked hand in hand with Mr. Subir Raha. There are many others must be here who have worked with him. So thank you very much for all of you for having joined this. So the past 2 years have transformed the lens through which we see the world. And whether it is COVID or the climate change which is already taking place, the world has seen many changes and many challenges in the contemporary times. And I'm sure this is an opportunity for all of us to see that SDGs agendas of 2030, we must be propelling towards. And India being one of the fastest growing markets globally, it plays a key role. If I quote Martin Luther King, who says, "It is always the right time to do right things." And probably this is the time that we do it, because we are trying to do a right thing. And we have to accomplish the climate action. Already Honorable PM has given us the target. By 2070, we must be having net zero. So while doing so, also in that summit in 2020, what he has told, that reverberates that we must not only revise our ambitions, we also must review our achievements against those targets which we have already set. I think probably that gives a challenging call to each one of us here. So looking ahead, we know that our foundation is sound, but we must act on a scale and at a pace which we haven't tried before. At the same time, while we realize that the complex issues that the world faces today needs faster and intelligent solutions, it is also extremely, extremely important for each one of us not to lose values and ethics in the zeal of taking faster decisions. So finally, I think I can conclude with Mahatma Gandhi's word that one must care about the world one will not see. So by wielding power of platforms like UNGCNI and of course advancing UNGC principle, we can change the current realities and create meaningful and long-lasting changes which are aimed to achieve this climate solution. So I would again, once again, like to thank all our guests, all our esteemed guests, and of course, the pleasure is that the first time we are having full house in-person attendance. So that is something we are extremely happy about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for setting the context. As you rightly said, that the right thing to do right now is almost today, and we have to accelerate our efforts. Next, I would now like to call Dr. Alka Mittal, Chairman and Managing Director of ONGC, to please present the welcome address.
Greetings to very distinguished Ma'am Joyashree Roy, who will be delivering the 10th Subir Raha Memorial Lecture today. Shubha, who is present with us, all the distinguished dignitaries who are there on the dais and right in front of me. It's a pleasure to see all of you in person, but still, I would extend my greetings to those who have joined online. It's a pleasure to have all of us connected together to listen to Ma'am Joyashree Roy on this very relevant theme of climate conversations and the secret of prosperity in this 21st century. We are talking about it, but there's a lot more to be done in the years to come. So that's why when Ma'am talks in her candid manner, we really understand what are the things we should be focusing on, what are the areas we need to work on. So on behalf of GCNI, it gives me a really immense pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to each of you, and especially to Ma'am Joyashree Roy. She's the first woman keynote speaker for the Subir Raha Memorial Lecture. And we welcome you here, ma'am. And when the discussion was on as to who should be the person, we all zeroed in on her, because not only is she from Jadavpur University, she is also an authority in this domain. And who can be better than her? And I have the privilege of listening to ma'am, attending 2 classes of hers. So I see her as a guru as far as, and quite a few in this hall were there with me, ma'am, at Jadavpur University listening to you. So pandemic really put us all on the back foot, but along with the very negative positive which was happening as a result of COVID-19 positive, there were certain positives also. We all became more conscious, more cautious about how things could go wrong if we are a little less sensitive. And on this note, we all have been working on taking the best care of our Mother Earth. And for that to happen, we really need to work on reducing the levels of the rate at which the temperatures are going high. Especially sitting in a place like Delhi, we are all facing the brunt of it. The clouds cover comes in the morning, but by evening we are left high and dry. And this is something which we really have to work upon to ensure that climate change doesn't impact us and the coming generations. As Mr. Mahapatra very nicely said, that we really need to work towards ensuring that the coming generations don't blame us for not taking action on time, in time. So while we are talking about a concern which we are facing today, but look at the visionary leader in Mr. Subir Raha and other founding members who took lead in establishing the Global Compact Network for India. And these were the leaders immediately at the turn of the century who got together, had lots of discussions at Mumbai and Delhi, and then the pillars of Global Compact Network India were laid. And Subir Raha sir was in lead in this regard. The way he spearheaded the movement, it in almost like a movement mode, was something which got all of us, at least from the oil sector. Mahapatra ji has already conveyed, and we all in ONGC also got together to work on that. And look at the visionary in him. He is the one who established an ONGC Energy Center, way back in 2005, and it came into action in 2006. So this is the kind of leader we are talking about, who was always a few years ahead of the times. And this is the kind of person who has made a difference to ONGC and wherever he was. In his unique style, he would be very, very sensitive to the needs of an organization. And in case of ONGC, let me share with you, he very meticulously crafted 3 C's: competence, commitment, and cohesion as critical factors to achieve success immensely. And he helped us in understanding the crux of it. And ONGC turned around as a result of his efforts within a period of 5 years. And the kind of change he brought about in the mindsets, in the way of we were doing our business, the way we were looking at challenges, and the way we were taking them on. And this is what the person Subir Raha was all about. There's no way I could stop myself from talking about him, because you don't come across such visionary leaders very often, and we all actually try to emulate him, his style, in the sense that we would like to bring about the change which and take forward the change which he had set rolling. And this is what not only in ONGC, at UN Global Compact also, we all have continued the tradition of coming forward, getting people together, and getting different stakeholders together and working towards this very common, very critical and common agenda. Friends, the economic prosperity we have been enjoying since decades, with the help of technology, modern science, rising income levels, etc., however, has in its one simple truth: all the prosperity relies on nature. Everything that comes to us and brings us to better times comes from nature that surrounds us, and of which we are very much a part of. And from the food we eat to the air we breathe, everything is, after all, given by the nature. And needless to say, this simple truth has profound bearing for the humankind's prosperity in future as well. And as I was mentioning, it is imperative that for the organizations in their sustainability journey to adopt futuristic goals for climate change mitigation that are derived through scientific methods. Now is the time when we need to put our thoughts and minds together to come up with solutions which will see us through, and the coming generations will be safe and flourishing in the coming years. So while we have already talked about how net zero is a target which is given to us and we all are trying to work on it, we at ONGC, for example, have embedded sustainable growth as a core value in our vision and mission, and have initiated many programs, projects to build climate resilience of the organization. Efforts have been made, but efforts have to be continued. That is the only way we will be able to reach where we have committed to. And on this note, I would just like to end my talk by saying that while responsible growth is to be aimed at to remain relevant in tomorrow's energy ecosystem and to resonate with the next generation of energy consumers as well, we also need to be taking care of each and every element in our sphere of influence where we can make a change as far as climate change mitigation is concerned. I shall with pride, I will share with pride that this is what we saw our leaders in the years gone by do, and this is what we would like to pass on to the coming generations. On this note, without taking any more time, I would just like to listen to Ma'am Joyashree Roy, who has traveled all the way just to be with us and to share her thoughts with us and her wisdom-based suggestions and ideas, so that we are able to bring about the change we have been talking about. So thank you so very much for being with us, and ma'am for being with us too. So we look forward to listening to ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for great words of wisdom. As you rightly mentioned, that the efforts are already we are doing, but it needs to be continued, and we need to be on the path to achieve our climate goals, because we are already under the code red for humanity, as indicated by the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres. Before we proceed ahead with the lecture, we'll have a small film screening on late Subir Raha, on his journey and how he has set it up the milestones in making the ONGC the largest PSU in India, and also in instrumental in setting the Global Compact Network India as a leading networks in the UN Global Compact family. I now request the technical team to please play a video on Subir Raha.
Year 2001. ONGC was at crossroads. Its productions and fortunes had dwindled. An international management consultant had painted a grim picture. ONGC would wither away in 3 to 5 years. At this difficult time, ONGC found a man who restored its sense of direction and purpose. Subir Raha, the legendary chairman and managing director of ONGC. Leadership is all about plugging into the minds and hearts of people. It's about rallying them around to a compelling and exciting vision of the future. Raha reached out to thousands of ONGCs across the country through his open letters. He introduced himself not as the head of a company, but as a member of the ONGC family. The response was phenomenal. Raha's open houses and direct grievance approach infused transparency. He motivated employees to give their best and instilled a sense of belongingness. A man of action, Subir Raha embarked on a series of far-reaching initiatives. In the first strategy meet, he formulated new goals and policies of the organization. In 2002, the Mangalore Refinery and Petrochemicals Limited was on the brink of collapse. Enter Shree Roy. He took equity in the ailing company, and MRPL became profitable within a year. Raha had scripted the biggest turnaround in corporate India. Raha was sensitive to professional and personal aspirations of the employees. He redesigned the human resources framework, where qualification and performance became the prime criteria for promotion. He had an abiding commitment to the principle of fairness. People pehle, paper piche became the new mantra. When a need was immediate, his response was immediate. Having firmly positioned his feet on the ONGC shores, he now decided to carry ONGC into deep water exploration in a big way. He launched the second biggest and most challenging deep water campaign globally, Project Sagar Samriddhi. Raha introduced an array of people's initiatives: Unnati Prayas, Super Unnati Prayas, Shan Saptak. Respecting the wisdom of pioneers, he brought them back into ONGC's fold with Agrani Samman. Using information technology to build knowledge centers, he transformed ONGC. He established two of the top 10 virtual reality interpretation facilities in the world for improving drilling and engineering performance. On the global front, his dynamism rejuvenated the company and gave it the recognition it deserved. Till 2001, the only overseas asset of ONGC Videsh Limited was equity in Vietnam. The Raha effect transformed OVL into a serious global player, recipient of a number of individual awards. He was responsible for some well-deserved recognitions for ONGC. With his vision and business acumen, Subir Raha steered ONGC to become a financially strong enterprise. He celebrated each milestone of ONGC and infused a sense of belonging and pride. Today, ONGC shines brightly in the global summit, and its aura reminds us that the difference between the tobacco and the pinnacle of ONGC is an unforgettable superstar, Subir Raha.
That was a tremendous journey by late Subir Raha in making the ONGC the largest PSCO. Moving ahead, at GCNI, we strongly believe in forwarding the cause of the gender equality in climate action. Today at this lecture, we have with us two strong female pioneers who have made the significant impact in their respective field, and especially in the climate change. Proactive inclusion of the women in business and climate action effectively creates an environment for innovation and the movement. Today we are joined by Dr. Joyashree Roy, who is the Bangabandhu Chair Professor at Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand, and also she's the fellow at the Global South AIT at Thailand. She's also with the Department of Economics, Jadavpur University, and a National Fellow of the Indian Council of Social Resources and ICCCR. She's the founding advisor of the two multi-year projects that she has been leading, Global Change Program and Joyashree Sasaka Young Leaders Fellowship Fund that she has been leading. She was also in the IPCC 2007 Nobel Prize winning jury panel and also at the sixth assignment of the IPCC panel of the energy that she has been heading up. Over to you, ma'am, for the lecture.
A very good evening to everybody. I thank the UN Global Compact Network of India for giving me this special privilege to deliver the 10th Subir Raha Memorial Lecture. This is a special privilege for me due to several reasons and coincidences, which are also secrets which I'm going to tell you, which made me to accept this invitation without a second thought, despite my unprecedentedly extreme busy schedule over these 2 weeks. Incidentally, I'm familiar with the name Subir Raha from my early childhood school days because he joined St. Edmund's College in Shillong, the then capital of erstwhile Assam, after he completed his high school and became a classmate of one of my brothers who was also had the same name, Subir. Just for your information, I was also born in Shillong and then moved to Kolkata. It became a piece of interesting information to all of us back then that during College Fest in St. Edmund's College, Subir Raha memorized overnight one of the longest poems of Rabindranath Tagore, Africa. With his theatrical voice, the performance was of top class, and he won the Best Participant Award. I heard this from my brother. Both the Subirs joined Jadavpur University for their engineering degrees, although in different streams. All his batchmates remember Sri Subir Raha for his sharp memory and extraordinary organizational capability. His visionary instinct and the inherent organizational capability led him to lay the foundation step for UN Global Compact Network India in 2003. We do need at this juncture many such visionaries and business leaders. As I understand, there are more than 500 members today in UN GCNI, which looks impressive. But specific question is, how many such business leaders do we need to commit to achieve desired level of climate action today? In IPCC report published this year in chapter 5, which I was leading, we said, based on the scientific evidences, that we need between 10 to 30% of committed individuals to set new social norms to make this shift away from warming path to stabilization path. Question is, how do we track them? How do we know their actions are not greenwash, but delivering real benefit? How to monitor them? I will try to cover some of these issues in my presentation today. In this decade, we need to find out whether humanity shows the courage to come together to keep this planet habitable for the generations to come. We are using the notion of sensitive intervention points to identify such actions. The climate conversation, can I go to the, I want to go to the slide. I'm sorry. So, we can go here. So, today, as you see, what I have tried to name it, the presentation, as the climate conversation and the secret of prosperity in 21st century. Because we need to understand that over and over again in humanity, we have come across human progress, we have come across several crises. And it's us, human beings, who have solved it. So it's not something unsolvable. That's the first message that we need to understand. And let us first understand, where is the climate conversation today? I'll pick up the most important sensitive points to understand where the climate conversation is and where actions are needed. We know from IPCC report, which got published this year, is that unless there are immediate and deep emission reductions across all sectors, 1.5 degrees Celsius is beyond reach. And if 1.5 degrees Celsius is beyond reach, then sustainable development will be almost impossible to follow. And the evidence is, and there are ample of evidences to show that the time for action is now, because there are all different solutions which we know. And if we know these solutions better, and if we can talk it and make it an everyday dialogue among ourselves, I'm sure that will open up the secret of prosperity for 21st century, and we will be on a prosperous path. So this was the report which I led last year with a group of scientists, and where we tried to show that it's this decade when we have to achieve or make all the commitments. That's the most important part. We heard from Alkaji also that we are working and we have to go on working. But the question is, how fast? How fast we need to act? That's really the question now. It's not like what we grew in the past, that okay, things will happen. It's not that. Now we have a target, and we have to reach that target. That's the crux of the whole problem. So when do we need these actions to be taken? It's in this decade. Without actions taken in this decade, it will be almost impossible to achieve the stabilization even at 2 degrees Celsius. And you know that we are at 1 degree Celsius rise right now, and Celsius rise in a 1 degree warmer world we are living now. So what it means, we all know in terms of crisis, in terms of different extreme weather events and many other, even I do not want to attribute exclusively this pandemic to this, but there are several such occasions we'll be facing if we are not really acting now. The question is, how do we do? So we need to know what are the areas where we should be prioritized, right? When we know that only 1 month is left for our final examination, we really need to prioritize what exactly I need to do. So that's exactly what we need to do now. And the goal is that we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. So the question is how? So how do we identify these sensitive intervention points in this decisive decade? So we are saying that there are 6 system transformations that has to happen. So what are these sensitive transformations that need to happen? One is the more and more of cleaner fuel need to come in. I'm just not saying renewable, but then it's more and more cleaner fuel is needed, because I'm talking to people who are from ONGC. So it should not be only thinking of solar and wind are the solutions. And they are really not the only solutions. They cannot solve the global problem because of several reasons. So we need to be very broader in that approach. So one is that we have to change our energy system. Let's say it that way, that we have to clean up our energy system. It should be zero carbon energy system. And if you ask me whether we know that is possible, yes, we know that is possible now scientifically, technically, and it is possible in terms of cost also. And the other one is that we need to make our transport sector zero emitting. These are the 2 hard to abate sectors, the energy and the transport sector. And the third hard to abate sector is the heavy industries. So industrial system need to change, and I'll come back to those. The other point which we usually do not talk about, but which is very important, that you and I have many things to do. You and I are not only individuals, we are professionals, we are citizens, we are investors, we have many roles, and how we can influence these is extremely important. And of course, our settlements need to be zero carbon. Every building can be zero carbon building, and we need to invest in the nature. And how do we invest in nature? So that's something which we need to see. So these 6 transformations, if we can make commitment at a particular level of target within this decade, then we will set the ball rolling for this century when we will be on a sustainable path. So this is something which is important. Not that we have to close down everything today. No, we have time in the sense that in this decade we need to set the things right so that we are on the right direction. So if we do all in this 6 system transformation what is needed, then what we can do, we have shown that actually whatever reduction is needed by 2050, we can achieve these in this decade, and 73% reduction are possible just by deploying off-the-shelf technologies across all the sectors. And so I do not want to give you the hopeless situation we are in. We are in a very hopeful situation. We just need to look forward, need to learn new things, and need to apply these new technologies and new business models for making it possible. So the IPCC report has shown that we can halve the emission that we need to reduce by this decade itself if we act on all these sectors, which are energy, land use, industry, urban, building, transport, and in the demand side. So what we need to understand is that energy system will change. Why I'm picking up energy system first is because I'm talking to a energy industry, right? So, and this is actually the highest emitter and is in the first priority list of our sensitive point. So if you look at 2019's energy system in the world, then two big primary sources are, if you look at the left-hand side, then you will see that two big primary, okay, it doesn't matter. So in the left-hand side, you can see the primary energy. So the coal and the oil. Coal is at the top and oil is the bottom, right? And in between are other sources. And that shows, this Sankey diagram shows that where it goes and how the end-use sectors, that means users, are using the different resources, right? So this is the system we are talking about, so that we need to look into the supply side and we need to look at the demand side as well. And then we are saying, if you think in terms of 2045, you can see that how things are going to be changing. So over these next 10, 15 years, the solar will be dominating definitely, because this is important, because there is going to be growing demand, and so solar energy needs to be introduced more and more. So any new generation need to come from solar and the wind. But if you look into 2050, then we can see that basically there will be a very, very fundamental change, the way the whole end-use sectors will run, even the industry, the transport. So three major things which will happen is that the electrification, more electricity generation will be there. And if you use oil, even for oil and gas for electricity generation, that is even better than running the transport sector with that. So you can use it for electricity generation and put electricity into the transport. That will lead to less emission. So basically what we are saying is that you cannot now think sectorally. You cannot plan sectorally. You need to plan the buildings, the power generation, and the energy sector, and the transport sector together, because it will be completely different business models, how we will be running our cars, how we'll be running our homes, and how we'll be running our home appliances. So it will be an integrated way. So these are the new things which are coming. Many cities, many countries have already adopted that, and which is possible, but then in India, we are lagging far behind in that integration. And that is something which is really, really important. And the other vision is that electrification, future is electricity. That's something we must take it for granted, right? There will be no other alternative, I can tell you. You are thinking that what she is saying now, but then 20 years later, who will be living, and I might not be living, so you'll be saying that, oh, she said something truth, you know? So I'm just telling that because I see that many of the younger ones are also here. You will see that it will be a future world will be of electrified future. The other dominant supply side source will be, the energy carrier will be hydrogen. So now everybody is preparing for hydrogen economy. And we are still in a very, very, very almost negligible sense. But you know, the gas sector is going to lead this. We did a study as Bangabandhu chair, you know, I'm focusing now completely on Bangladesh energy sector. And so we were seeing that because they are the gas-based economy. And so we are seeing that what is the prospect for them? And we saw that it is because, you know, if you have a gas infrastructure, that will be the same which will be in hydrogen economy and also in geothermal economy. And the drilling technology which you use in oil and gas is the same technology which will be needed for geothermal energy. And so it's the same petroleum sector, petroleum, oil and gas sector need to be leading the hydrogen economy and the geothermal economy. This is something which I told in Bangladesh, that their Petro Bangla need to become hydrogen Bangla in next 20 years. That's something I would say that you need to see that how you can also do that. And who will be doing? You have the money. You have the money, you have to do the R&D, you have to just, and we have seen that these countries which have high infrastructure investment in the oil and gas network, they actually can do this transformation at 70% cost cheaper than any new country who will be doing this. Because you will use the same infrastructure with improvisation and R&D. So you need to invest in that. And your same drilling engineers, same engineers will be doing the same thing. So it just, you get a new direction in your, so you are not going to lose your job. You can maintain your job only if you have take this visionary future of becoming a hydrogen economy. That's something which I would say I have been telling everywhere, and even you know that by 2060, Europe is going to see that almost 60% is going to be from hydrogen economy. So we really, really need to push forward towards that. Another one which is going to be, I mean, three big things, as I said, are going to be the future vision of technology from the supply side, right? So that is going to be the carbon capture and storage and utilization. Remember, carbon is going to be the resource for future. You can use carbon for so many pharmaceutical industries and chemical production that carbon is going to be a big resource. So those who are capturing carbon and developing the technology for their utilization, they will be the leaders. And you know, in Norway, they have these deep sea storage and those they are using now as carbon capture and storage. For all the country in Europe are using that infrastructure for storing carbon. So that's why I'm saying, when I was just seeing, when I entered the room, the offshore drilling technology of ONGC, I was thinking, okay, this can serve as the carbon capture and storage infrastructure. I'm not sure how much you are talking about this. This should be the boardroom talk every day now, so that in this decade you set your vision that where you want to go, in which direction, how much in carbon capture, how much in this, and how this green hydrogen production can happen with solar and wind, and also the gas in between, so that, I mean, you know, there is a whole bunch of possibilities now. We are training people on this, so we really need that ONGC takes a course on that. But now the question is, should we really focus only on the supply side? The answer is no, we cannot, because it doesn't mean that you can go on increasing your demand ever and ever monotonically without considering that whether do we have enough resources to support that. The question is, wasteful consumption can be reduced, right? Anything wasteful in consumption can be reduced, and it is possible to reduce. We know that, right? So for that, sometimes people think that it's the people who will have to change the behavior. I'll come to that a little later. But what I'm showing here is that in IPCC 1.5 report, where we tried to show that if you are on the rightmost one, which means that you have the very big yellow in the negative side, which means that you need to capture carbon up to that level. So much of carbon needs to be captured if you do not reduce your emission now. And for that level of carbon capture, technology is not known, and we do not have that much of land or ocean space also, and the cost is going to be unknown right now. So what are the other alternatives? You can do many others, but if you look at the left-hand side, which says that if you change your demand, that means if you can reduce your demand for energy and land to certain extent, then actually you can do with very little carbon capture and storage. So we have to take a decision now. That's why I said this decade is extremely important. Whether you invest in end user technology, I'm just giving an example. If you have an electric car, I would say that you are really a leader, right? So in that sense, or if you have a hybrid car, you are still a little less, but then still you are a leader. If you have a real, very old engine, which is very inefficient engine, I would say that please give it up. You can reduce waste of your valuable resource, and you can reduce the future carbon capture and storage cost and technology, right? So this is something which we are saying. So you can change your demand, make it efficient, drive a efficient car, carpool, sometimes you work from home, and you can make that happen, and then you reduce your emission. So what we are saying is that how do you change your demand? So we are saying that it's not possible only by personal choice or socio-cultural behavior. If it is in the nutrition sector, food sector, we have shown that by reducing food waste that we do every day, worldwide. I mean, I'm not saying everyday home, but then restaurants and many other things. So if you reduce food waste and if you move away from the meat-based diet, then you can reduce your emission maximum. This is the left-hand side blue bar, how much you can reduce, right? And what it shows, the left-hand side gray bar shows how much we need to reduce in total. And out of that, the blue bar shows how much you can change just by changing your dietary choice and reducing food waste. And that's how you release your land. And that land can be used for afforestation purpose for carbon capture. And that's the cheapest and most known carbon capture and storage mechanism we have. So we can do it in a very simple way, and we can do that, and that's something which we can do in the nutrition sector. And what is this dark gray bar below? It says that if you do not do anything on demand side, then the whole left-hand side gray bar you have to do in the supply side reduction of emission. But if you do on the demand side, then only the dark gray bar is something which you need to reduce from the supply side. So the supply side investment challenges become easier and manageable globally and every nation-wise also if you work on the demand side. So this is one of our, I would say the most important contribution of this year's IPCC report, which I was co-leading with other scientists, where we tried to show that actually 40 to 70% of 2050 emission reduction is possible only by changing demand side. And these are the numbers which we are showing. So in industry you can do, but if you do in industry, it's the technology need to change. That means you have to produce products which are longer lived. Don't try to throw out your mobile every 2 years. That's not a fashion. That's going to change as a fashion, right? So fashion is going to be how old your mobile and is it still giving you the service? And are you maintaining it? And Alka and I will wear the same sari in the next ONGC meeting also. That's not a prestige loss, you know? So that we will buy one less sari and textile production will emit less. So our lifestyle need to change. We need to create new social values. And there is nothing wrong in it. Some people said that that's a status consumption. Who defines the status? We define the status. Let's redefine it. Let's be the reader. Let's be that 20 to 30% who can change the whole world in this decade. And that's something which we can see in the land management, in the land transport management. We see that it's the infrastructure. If you do not have an infrastructure for walking in a city, how can you walk in a city even to buy a small thing? Then what you do, you take the car out again. But you can just walk. That will be good for your health. You don't have to spend time to going to gym and do it in a very dark room. But then you can walk in the nice Lodi garden and just on the way back, you buy something and you can come back. But you need a good walkable lane. You need a good cycling lane, right? And we as citizens need to demand that. That's why I said we have many roles to play. We will vote for those political parties who really think that they want to save the world by stopping climate change. They dare to take very strong policies for that. So we need to be looking for that. And the right-hand side, what we are showing is that if you do all these demand-side technology changes, infrastructure changes, then when you are going for an electrified world, I said if you go for an electrified world, your emission will automatically come down because of the very specific technological conversion numbers. And then on the demand side, you add little more. And then you can see that you even reduce your emission more. And that's how, if you look into the system as a whole, land system and energy system, look at the demand side, look at the supply side, and invest, right? So you need the best, most efficient car, you need the most efficient bus, you need the most efficient metro rail, then only you can save all these. And so all these, we said in IPCC report that it is possible even within less than $100 per ton of carbon if you spend. And already, you know, we have shown, that's an old slide, that's why I didn't want to add here. In Indian industries, many of them have been spending actually $100 per ton of carbon without naming it as a ton of carbon. We made all the calculations to show that they are already doing this, right? So they are leaders in many sense, cement industry, steel industry, aluminum industry. So what we want to say is that, so who can enable this shift? Did I cross my time? Okay, so so what I want to say is that, so who will drive this change? As I said, the people matters, right? So it's us, the citizens, investors, consumer, role models, and then professionals, right? So we need really, really role models to change this. And so that will help in reducing the inequity. Also, remember, it's the top 1% of the consumers emit 15% of emission. And bottom 90% in the world emit only 48% of emission. And they are the most sufferer. So a day will come when people will stand up and ask us the question. And we have to answer that with head high, saying that we have done something. And we have not taken away, we have not robbed someone else's prosperity for our own wasteful prosperity. That's really, really something, very hard talks we need to talk every day. And so the question is, how do we know that if we are transforming the systems, right? We want to deliver net zero, but how do we know? So the concept that we are using is that, okay, so for any change, historically, it has been seen that it passes through many processes, whether it is technology, whether it is societal change or anything, is that there will be an initiation, there will be development of the technology. You just think in terms of technology, that will explain you, and then it really takes off. It means the cost goes down. Think of the solar energy. 30 years back, I used to go to Goshaba to see how the solar energy is being invested by the West Bengal Renewable Energy Development Agency, right? And talk to the villagers that what they are doing, how the government is doing. And 30 years later, you just see that. And at that time, you know, I used to meet so many entrepreneurs, solar and energy entrepreneurs, and they used to say that, madam, we do not see any prospect for us. What will happen to us? Everybody is saying that there will be a prospect. Those who stuck into the whole business, you should see them now, right? So it has taken off, the cost has come down, and it's just surging. So whole world is getting that benefit, and that's something which is takeoff. And once the takeoff happens, then the technology deployment increases in the second part of the middle part of the graph, and the last one shows that how the emission will be declining. So this is something which we are trying to say, that how in different stages and we have to track this. How do we track this? We wrote a paper last year, and we said that we are calling this change in the society when it happens, it's like a seismic change, you know? So little by little, the technology is entering, it is creating some disruption, people are getting disturbed, and then it really takes off, it really creates a tremor, right? And then the 100% of change happens. So this is the brown colored line shows the rate at which it goes ups and downs in different ways, but then the color, the absolute level change is 100% at some point of time. So this is something which I'm just giving an example from the renewable sector, what has happened. We were looking into the transport sector, and we tried to see, because I stuck with the number when I got your invitation, that 500 companies are the member of even GCNI, right? So I thought that, okay, how does it fit into my analysis, right? And then I saw that, okay, we are doing this analysis, and which says that, okay, let's keep track what is happening, right? So there are many study groups which are globally trying to keep track what is happening. So where this 500 number fits in, I have to do this estimation. But then what it shows is that, suppose I'm just not reading out everything, but what it says is that suppose G20 countries, right? What is the share of light transport which are electrified, right? So we can say that, okay, 87% have been done. So like that, if you see, not in all. So look at the last one, right? What is the, percentage of the internal combustion engine led, the vehicle ownership? That's still dominant. That's still dominant. And this has to be changing 100%, but this is still dominant. But then what we are expecting is that it's not only electrification, but then hydrogen will also become a major fuel in the transport sector, and that will also change. And that's happening very, very fast. And basically, your homes will be, your home will be, charging your battery in the car. And that's what is happening in many countries. That's why I said the power sector, power energy generation sector, the building sector, and the transport sector need to have an integrated policy. And so what we are saying is that what is this nature-based solution? So one is, as I said, if you change your dietary pattern, and if you change your food waste, then you release your land, right? So what do you do with the released land? You plan your afforestation and those programs, right? So we have seen that if you just invest in urban green and blue infrastructure, right? So wetlands and all those things, if you maintain and you make your building facades green, and there are many other things you can do, rooftops, and you just build the urban green garden and all those, we have seen that the positive impact on all other sustainable development goals are all positive. So what it means is that you take a climate action, but it is closely linked with your sustainable development goals. So we have done all these analyses for all the mitigation and adaptation options to see how they advance the 17 SDGs. So if you how many of you have just checked in the website the IPCC report? Don't feel shy if you have not seen. Can you raise your hand? I'm impressed. At least 10, 15 hands. That's really impressive. But again, I said, right, 10, 15, what does it mean? We want 100%, right? So make a seismic change, right? So that's something. These are all downloadable, you know. You can download in your mobile also. You look into your WhatsApp messages every day, right? And then you think that, oh my God, what rubbish message again. Why do you spend time on that? Make it a climate conversation, right, with yourself. And that will change the world, right? So what we say that if we reduce food loss and food waste and shift to balanced and sustainable healthy diets, you can see all our positive impact with all the sustainable development goals, right? So policymakers oftentimes say that which ones we should prioritize. So what we tell them is that, okay, those actions which have both adaptation and sustainable development goal synergies, look for triple win. Look for triple win first, and then prioritize them and invest in that. So in your companies also, when you do these social responsibility decisions, you can look into those, right? And so we say that a restoration of forest and coastal ecosystem can shift the land from being source of emission to a net sink for storing carbon. And heavy industries need to really commit to the science-based targets. And we have seen that there are several ways. This is one of the publications where we tried to show that actually the industries can avoid any emission, you know, by adopting circular economy concept. They can shift their production systems to, say, 3D printing, and they can 3D manufacturing, and they can change they can reduce their emission. They can also improve many other things, and then they can reduce their emission. So, but still they cannot go to net zero, right? So for that, as I said, electrification and hydrogen are the only thing which now we know that industries cannot go to net zero unless they have hydrogen and electrification. And because hydrogen will also lead to many raw materials, feedstock for the chemical industry, and that will lead to reduction there, right? So, and cement production need to also change, and they will have no other option but to go for carbon capture and storage. So these are some of the things which we know now. So what we are trying to say is that what the businesses and investors can do in the electricity sector, right? Whenever they purchase, can they purchase clean energy? Or can they make an investment in the clean energy? So that is one of the, so ONGC can have a renewable energy investment sector, right? A new department. You can have a department and you can show that that's what we are doing, right? So anywhere, so that's how you can become these are the things which we are saying, right? So in the industry, when businesses, what they need to, they have to really plan for zero emission transition. They have to design long-lived products. They have to design lightweight car bodies so that the consumption of fuel is less in the car, right? So these are, and they have to procure their material from the supply chain in such a way that they can really make the whole supply chain cleaner. And when I sit in many of these advisory bodies in many companies and many publishing houses, we see that how they are doing everyday calculation, that how they are managing there. So this is something extremely important. You need to have your database ready, and you need to have that analysis continuously going on. So if you are not really investing a lot on that, I would say that please do that. And that will be really helpful to the world, and that will be the leadership of ONGC. And what are the gaps I notice? I noticed that there is environmental management accounting. We could not really do it enough because lack of adequate information. We tried to work with many of the industries here, and then we tried to see that adequate information on environmental cost, they do not really maintain well, and so it is not helping in improving the environmental accountability. And in terms of data, ESG, we see that data are very fragmented, unstructured, and several reporting standards compete with one another, so there is need for standardization. And this is our realization from the scientific literature and talking to the industries, is that not that every company knows what is their risk to the climate change. They do not know in terms of risk parameter, risk level, what is their risk. Making this risk awareness will help the industries to take the plan, because they are the risk minimizers, right? So every industry tries to minimize their risk. So if we can show this as another additional risk, and actually there are risks, so these risks, if these calculations, so in-house you can invite experts and do these risk calculation for your company level, unit level, then only you will be able to take action. So how to enable the shift in 2021 and 30, we need both climate leadership and global cooperation, and the capacity of the analytical community to measure the impact of carbon action and how to ramp it up. The most important challenge is going to be how to maintain employment and decarbonization at the same time. If you just think that whole coal production, mining, and the whole supply chain, if it closes down, it has to be, right? So then what happens to these people? Similarly, we are now seeing at coal, but that will come to the oil sector, gas sector also, right? So if we do not look at this, that's why I started with that, what is the how can you secure the job of the people? So what is the reskilling? What is the retraining? What is the vision of the industry, where it wants to go, which direction it wants to move? And that retraining needs to start from now, so that the today's younger employees can lead the future company. So this is something very important, and which is coming under just transitions, and every country is setting up just transition commission. I'm not sure whether India has thought of it at all. But my question is, the climate finance, say for example, South Africa, in the whole global debate, they could take out money from the global finance to transform to move away from coal to other cleaner fuel. So they got money to give employees compensation, training, and all those. So that estimation needs to be done, right? And so this is not coming, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. So what okay, this is really not showing. So basically, okay, let me explain. I don't need the slide, right? So what I wanted to say is that right now, if we are say that we are really prosperous in the world, the human population, right? By looking into how GDP is growing in every country, then what I wanted to show is that the left-hand top, we are showing that actually this had a full diagram, right? Where we are showing that we are working in a very small box of activities, very small box of activities, production and consumption activity. If we start reducing emission, we do many more actions. And those are not accounted for in the GDP of any economy. If you fall sick, GDP goes up. Mind it. If you pollute the air, GDP goes up. If you clean up the air, it doesn't show up in GDP accounting. So GDP accounting that we have adopted since 1942 globally to measure humanity's progress is incomplete. And as environmental economists, we have been saying, and we have been working with the ministries and the UN system also, that that needs to be expanded. And if you expand that, then the new activities will then be coming into the forefront. And that will get the payment for ecosystem services they are generating. So that will be their compensation, like our salary, like our wage, right? And so that will build up the GDP of any economy, right? So that is something which we are showing that if you adopt, so in 21st century, it is not going to be the GDP indicator showing your economic growth. It will be the sustainable development indicators. And those sustainable development indicators are going to be represented by a multidimensional indicator rather than GDP as a single dimensional indicator. And that is underway, and we can expect that this will dominate many, many economies. Already this has started in Netherlands. They estimate this in whole of European Union. They are thinking in terms of human well-being as an indicator of progress, not GDP as a progress. So these are the things happening. I would not say that in India is not doing anything. We had been working with the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation for almost 20 years to develop this, because this doesn't happen overnight, right? So training and practice, you have to put these systems in place, and then it happens. So these things are happening. So we can say that if we all put in our sincere effort towards that, realizing that this is our future, our humanity's future, and then we will be able to solve it. That's why I said that climate crisis is going to be extremely unfair unless we act now. And businesses and technologies need to be different than what we are living with today. And thank you very much.
Any question and answer session? Please raise your hand, and we will ensure a mic reaches you. Thank you.
Since we have very less time, so only 5 minutes are there, so I request all of you to please be very brief with your question if you have to our dignitaries.
मैं हिंदी में पूछूंगा. मेरा क्वेश्चन मैडम राय से है. वी ऑल अप्रिशिएट ऑल दिस एफर्ट कि एनर्जी ग्रीन एमिशन वगैरह का कंट्रोल होना चाहिए. एंड यू टॉक्ड अबाउट बैटरी या इलेक्ट्रिफिकेशन ऑफ द व्हीकल एंड ऑल. So my simple question is whether India has that capacity, like to go toward that direction, or will have to depend on other country for other import kind of thing. Thank you.
Okay, if there is no other question, I could have taken 2, 3 together. Otherwise, yeah. So yeah, let's take 3 questions together and then we come out. Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. My question is, maybe we can lead towards this battery-generated car, battery-based vehicle and all. But don't you think, or what is your opinion on this? What will be the level of position after about 10 years when we'll be disposing these batteries, type of acids, type of leads, type of carbon? Like, we need to think on that also, like, not the present situation, about 10 years or maybe 15 years ahead. That's my.
Sure, thank you. Here there was a question, so I would like to take this one first. Yeah. Can someone give the microphone here, please? Here in the front.
Thank you, Professor Roy. I had a bigger question because you touched upon 2, 3 very critical points. Which is one, who determines the prosperity of the status? 2, decarbonization without deceleration of industry. So what are your thoughts on incremental changes within the current system that we have, or something that we are working towards at the global level of maybe redefining GDP-based growth or continuous economic growth that is infinite, and therefore resources will always continue to be consumed incrementally, or re-looking at the system that we have developed for ourselves of consumption to some other metric, prosperity?
All 3 are so good questions, and in the whole of my research career, I have benefited most when I always interacted with the public, so that I get new research ideas. Okay, coming to the first question about whether India has the capacity, this is if you ask me as an economist, I would say that India has always shown that India has the capacity. I'll give 1 or 2 examples, right? When you look at the commitment by India in Paris Agreement about how much India will reduce, right? They said that they will reduce 30 to 33% of emission intensity. Our scientific results, and we have published it, that India can achieve these by 2025. So India will be overachieving. That's our pride. When whole world was thinking that India has all the dirty industries, we showed how steel, cement, pulp and paper, aluminum and glass, all these energy-intensive industries are actually adopting energy-efficient technologies, and your incremental changes definitely at that time. But that is behind the relative decoupling. We say that if 1% GDP grows, what is your energy need? In 1973, it was 1% GDP growth needed 1% energy growth. But now, it is 1/5 of the energy that you need. So basically, you have made your economy 20% more efficient than what you were. So this is something which India has done, and these numbers actually we show internationally to compete with the allegations against India. India has enough capacity. The second thing which I want to say is that We also showed in IPCC, I said that please read your IPCC reports, you know. You will really enjoy it, I'm telling you. Not because we wrote it, but you will enjoy it. Because you will get all the information. In 5th assessment report, we showed that actually cement industry in India is spending 100 US dollar per ton of carbon to clean up the manufacturing processes. And India is the leader in cement manufacturing because of its less energy emission. China once asked me, how do you think India could do it? We said that India reduced clinker input into the cement production by efficient technology. So this is something very important. We always undermine the Indian industries, Indian consumers, Indian experts, and Indian academia. But we should be proud of ourselves, and we have made India this just because of our educational system and the technology and the training of the engineers and the industries. So India has the capacity. Also, it was asked to me that how do you think where from India will get the money to change all the systems, right? I say that every day India is taking a decision to build a new city, right? Why don't you make your city a climate-friendly infrastructure? You can take this decision without any additional cost. This is what we need today, right? Okay, and now the battery BEV, the battery-operated electric vehicles. That's why I said the first thing that we need to do is we need to make not a linear economy, but a circular economy. And if you plan it from day one, you can have a zero emission, zero waste system. And that's what China is doing at a very large scale, right? Their eco park and everything, they are making circular economy in that way. So the developing countries where new industries are coming up, we can always think in terms of circular economy. It is possible. And that's why I said the batteries are not going to be the sole solution, because you will not get the lithium, the amount of lithium that will be needed in every car is going to be battery operated, right? So why don't you, ONGC becomes a hydrogen fuel-based economy, leads that, and so that you make your car not the battery operated, but then fuel cell operated, and it becomes a cleaner, right? So, and then what the other question is that, so who defines prosperity, right? We have to define our prosperity. The people, the citizen, right? We need good health. We need to demand for good health. We need to demand for our clean air. We need to demand for our clean water, right? So we have to define. And if we just go by that, then what it says is that human well-being, how you define human well-being. Amartya Sen has been doing this, his life has been spent for that, right? And he has, that's why when I was defining Shree Subir Raha's personality, I said that capability, I didn't say capacity. Amartya Sen defines what you are capable of, how you can make yourself capable, defines how you will prosper. So it's your education, it's your better health, it's your skill which brings the capability. So definitely GDP, income. GDP is nothing but just the income, right? So income is not only, so you can have very high income, but you are always sick. That's not prosperity, right? You may have little less income, but you are healthy. Then that's the prosperity. I always give one example, you know, and with that so I talked about degrowth. Degrowth is not a concept that we should be thinking of. That's a kind of very negative approach. So it's not about degrowth. You grow, but in which direction? Not by income only, but multidimensionally, right? So look into all these directions and then define your growth. And then it will be possible to manage your economy better. And also the incremental changes, that's what we led us to relative decoupling. That means one unit needs, say, 1/5 of the energy, right? But what we need is zero carbon now. So that's the absolute decoupling what we need, right? So from that point of view, just one point, I'll stop the master of ceremony, and without this, I can't end my talk, right? I always say that in developing countries, we say that we're poor, but imagine every day from your childhood what your mother did for you, what service she gave to you. It doesn't count in GDP. We have a fantastic life, but we say we are poor. We are never proud of the contribution of the mothers because GDP doesn't count that, right? But in other countries, mothers do not give this service to their children. They are sometimes confused. But they have very high GDP, but very confused life. What do you want?
Thank you, Dr. Joy.
Oh, sorry. If master of ceremony doesn't stop me, I can go on for the whole day.
Okay, one last question because I'm sure all of you have to leave after 6, so
Catch
so
my
just
flight also.
one question.
Yes, I have a basic question regarding that we are outsourcing, the carbon emissions through supply chains, because a lot of labor and, lot of labor is, exploited because of that, and a lot of mining that is going to be coming from lithium, etc., is going to come from, developing countries, for example, Vietnam, China, etc., where labor standards are not at all, up to the basic standards. So basically, we are outsourcing our carbon emissions, and our new technology, for example, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies are also, 5G, artificial intelligence, sometimes guzzle a lot of big data, which is a lot more carbon intensive. So how to, deal with this such type of, challenge?
One answer is that Iceland is now leading in hosting all the data centers, starting from Google to everybody. You know why? They have geothermal energy, zero carbon energy. So businesses are going to shift where they have zero carbon energy. So businesses need to be careful, right? It's not about that we don't have labor standards, so we do not bring industries. Why don't you change your labor standard? That's the easiest thing to do, right? Why, as citizens, we don't ask for that? Have we ever asked ourselves every day that are we demanding what we want, or we are just following what is told to us? Let's stand up, let's change. Let's change. We have to do this. That's why I said the hard talk, not sweet talks. You have to really have hard talks. And cryptocurrency, do we really need cryptocurrency? I'm an economist. If you ask me, we don't need it. Why it is happening? Okay, I'll give you an example. In India, if you look into the financial market history, you will see that there has been so many informal money lenders created so many kind of scams over past 60, 70 years, right? Because regulation is very weak. It's not all formalized, not all defined. Now, cryptocurrency is nothing but application of digital technology to transform those small informal moneylender business into digitized business. Sometimes we just get dazzled if someone says in a digitized language rather than our own language, So we as human beings need to educate ourselves to such an extent that we can question whether I will take that or not. I said Alka and I will use the same sari in the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joyashree, for such a wonderful lecture and bringing the tremendous insights. I think that has made the audience stick at 6 p.m. So thank you so much, and a big round of applause for Dr. Joyashree Roy. And I think the biggest key takeaway from her lecture that we could actually align up that investing in nature is most crucial to set the ball rolling on the sustainable path and to transform the 21st century and the global goals. And the responsibility is not with the leaders, it lies within all of us who are sitting in this room today. I think the 1 hour is very less to do the climate conversation. It's about the decade that we have to talk about. And when we talk about investing in nature, a small memento of we want to present to you. So I would now request Dr. Alka Mittal to please present a plant and the seed that we'll be sowing today that will result for the implications in the coming decade. A big round of applause. I now request Mr. Ranjan Mohapatra to please present a plant to Dr. Alka Mittal. A big round of applause. And I also request Mr. Ranjan Mohapatra to please present the plant to Mr. Thakur Pherwani. And also to Mr. Somesh Biswas. A big round of applause. Thank you to all the dignitaries for their wonderful insights that they have given today on this eminent topic, the climate conversation. I now request Mr. Aseem Kumar, the officiating Executive Director of UN Global Compact Network India, to finally conclude the event. Over to you, sir.
I am unable to find words, and this rarely happens with me, but आज लाजवाब हो गया हूँ. And it is because of the way she has poked us and put the onus right back on us. You know, it is very easy to say, what have you done for me? The tough question is, what have you done for anyone? So as UN GCNI, we say that goal 17 is the only solution to achieve SDGs and sustainability. I profusely thank Dr. Joyashree Roy for a wonderful and insightful lecture, and I can simply, say a couplet to give her message. And I would want the attention of one and all. तू शाहीन है, परवाज़ है फितरत तेरी. तू शाहीन है, परवाज़ है फितरत तेरी, उड़ने को तेरे जहां और भी हैं. I profusely thank our President Dr. Alka Mittal, who also happens to be the first women president of Global Compact Network India. Thanks to Vice Presidents Mr. Somesh Biswas and Mr. Thakur Pherwani. Our Secretary of the Admin Committee, Ajit Kumar Sharma. Joint Secretary Ms. Sunita Sule, Treasurer Mr. Neeraj Priyadarshi, Mr. Ranjan Kumar Mohapatra, Chairman Administration Committee, and all the board members. I may not be in a position to take all the names, but heartful gratitude for making this happen, participating with us, supporting us, and also giving us wings to fly, aspirations to fulfill. Thank you so much. Special thanks to Mr. Shombi Sharp, Mr. Deepak Dwivedi, Dr. Uddesh Kohli, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, Mr. Sanil Namboodiripad, and many others who are very, very senior people, and they have actually dedicated their whole lives to make the planet a better place. Thank you very much. I would also take this opportunity to specially thank the family of late Shree Subir Raha, and particularly we are delighted that Shuva Raha is here with us, and her question was absolutely pertinent, and I also have some experience with late Shree Subir Raha, and besides everything that has been said about him, I think he was a very, very, very big taskmaster. He was very tough. Everything is fine, but when it comes to the brass tacks, when it comes to action, execution, no flaw accepted. So that is the thing that I realized when he told me in Bangalore. He was president of IMA and I was working with IMA as a deputy director then. He told me that you will come to my room at 8 o'clock sharp and you will knock only once. So I was up and about, ready, waiting for the clock to say 8, and at 8 I just knocked, and after that I have no idea whether he will come. As he heard this, and that was maybe a very, very tough time for me. But within seconds he opened the door, and whatever decisions he took, it took merely seconds. And we had a practice of getting the president's signature on 1 or 2 blank certificates, because those certificates can be, somebody misspells or somebody else has to be given. He said, please stop this practice. I will not sign the blank certificates. That also gave me a lot of learning. So I can only say that he is and has been and will remain the guiding light and inspirational force for all of us to become the change that we want to become. Thank you. I also take this moment to profusely thank our sponsors, ONGC and Indian Oil Corporation Limited. Without their support, such high-level programs are not possible, because everything has a sustainability angle. So while we may have people, planet, but also we need sustainability, we need support. So thank you very much to both the leaders sitting here from the respective organizations. Thank you very much. And also thank you the people who are attending through live stream, and also the members of media for their presence. And I am sure sustainability reporting is something that they have to embrace, and they will do it for sure. Last but not the least, I would like to thank all the attendees, all the participants present here in person. It feels like a dream kind of reunion of human beings, which is a wonderful sensation in itself. It actually does something to you and you feel energized. And also, you are the very purpose of our existence. So therefore, a special thank you to everybody present in the room. And finally, I would like to place on record deep appreciation from the organizing team at the Global Compact Network India, Dr. Somnath, Mr. Deep Chandra Papnoi, Ms. Tamanna Girdhar, Shreya, Mr. Aryadev, Ms. Seerath, Mr. Rajendra Kumar Sharma, Mr. Hariraj, Chandra Bhaiya, and many other interns, young students who want to make a difference. So until we meet again, let's wear the same things. You see, actually, what happened? I will just take one more minute here. What actually happened that during COVID, when people were locked in their houses, they became very frugal. They realized it is all purposeless. But once the lockdown and the pandemic has gone down a bit, with a vengeance, people are going out. I went to the hills myself, and I can definitely comfortably tell you that where the temperature was supposed to be in 20s, it was about 35, and that is all because of this climate crisis. So each one of us is responsible. We have to take this message forward. In our daily activities, we have to come down on the resources that we use or abuse. So together towards a sustainable world that we want to give our future generations, children and the youth, and also together we can and together we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. As you rightly mentioned that we are here because of you are making this happen and because of your support. So thank you very much. With this, we conclude the Subir Raha Memorial Lecture and the AGM meeting of the Global Compact Network India. I now request all of you to please go outside for the high tea that's been waiting, and we request to join us in our new initiatives, whether it's water, energy, gender, skilling. Thank you very much, and thank you for supporting us throughout. Thank you.
Hello. Excuse me, respected President. Can we have privilege to have a photograph with you? All the GCNI team. All the GCNI team, please come on the stage.
मैं बैग तो अंदर डालूं